All of the 800 poorest counties in China were lifted from poverty, according to Beijing. Could this be possible during a pandemic and after severe flooding? The first bankruptcy of a commercial bank occurred in China. Is this the first domino to fall? The pandemic industry makes money, according to a Chinese think tank professor. Her opinion triggers fury. Beijing has remained quiet in recent days about the U.S. election. Now Xi Jinping congratulated Joe Biden. UK telecom companies could be fined $130,000 a day if they use Huawei equipment. And a Canadian telecom giant is removing Huawei equipment from its 5G network. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. December marks the deadline for Xi Jinping's Chinese poverty alleviation campaign. Chinese officials are announcing the project's goals have been achieved, but some people say they're even poorer now than before.
According to Chinese officials, all of the country's more than 800 poor counties have been lifted out of poverty. That's after the completion of Beijing's poverty alleviation campaign. But residents in some areas told us a different story. Liangshan, a county in China's southwestern Sichuan province, was recently declared to be free of poverty, but locals there continue to endure substandard living conditions. Ms. Zhang, a farmer and Liangshan resident, had her land seized by regime authorities. She was offered little to no compensation.
Sichuan's poverty alleviation is a fraud. It's impossible to get rid of poverty. Victims of forced demolition in our area cannot afford to eat. Displaced low-class citizens who are over 50 years old can't get hired for work. And 70 to 80-year-old elderly women go through trash bins all day long, picking up rubbish for a living. They have no income at all. Nobody cares about the lives of people in the mountainous region. They all dress in tattered clothes. The CCP doesn't care whether people live or die.
Chinese scholar Bai Yang told Radio Free Asia that the real reason behind the poverty campaign is so the Chinese regime can save money. That's because once a county is declared out of poverty, the central government is no longer required to distribute additional funding to the public. He also added that poverty funds are often embezzled by officials from each level of the regime, and that when it finally reaches the people, it would be a mere fraction of the original amount. In some cases, the campaign left residents even poorer than they were before. On occasion, the regime grants money to residents for home repairs and construction, but the funding given is often too little, and residents are also forced to purchase building materials from a designated company. Liang Xin does charity work in the region. He told us that in the end, residents typically have to borrow money to finish the construction. Originally debtless residents will then acquire debt that they cannot pay off. We've given him a pseudonym to protect his identity. The Chinese regime has also leveraged the campaign to spread communist ideology. As part of the program, Beijing has established state-controlled institutions in areas without schools. A region in southern Sichuan is home to many members of the Yi ethnic group. Liang Xin says that the regime established schools in this region in order to replace the Yi traditional culture with communist thinking. He says the Yi people are in the same situation as the ethnic group in Inner Mongolia. Because the Yi have their own language, beliefs, and culture, Beijing aims to re-educate and indoctrinate them with the Communist Party's atheism and communist teachings. With years of re-education, the traditional culture of the Yi people may not be passed down to the next generation. Reporting by Don Ma, NTD News.
The first ever bankruptcy of commercial bank in China has officially come to pass. The bank has been used to launder money for top Chinese Communist Party officials and their powerful families for decades. The founder of the bank's parent company is Chinese but holds Canadian citizenship.
China's Baoshang Bank, or BSB, the largest local commercial bank in China, has entered bankruptcy proceedings. The founder of the bank's parent company, a Chinese national with Canadian citizenship, disappeared at the hands of the communist regime 3 years ago, becoming a victim of the inner struggle within the Communist Party. The top Chinese regulatory body, China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, made the bankruptcy announcement on Monday. This made BSB China's first bankrupted commercial bank. According to public information, BSB is an affiliate of Tomorrow Group, an enormous financial industry-based complex controlled by Xiao Jianhua. Xiao was a white glove or middleman of the Zheng Qinghong family, the former top communist official of the country. White gloves is a specific Chinese term referring to a middleman or outfit that launders dirty or corrupt money under a seemingly legitimate front, like dirty hands concealed by a pair of white gloves. The white glove, Xiao, was one of China's richest men. However, the 48-year-old made international headlines in 2017 when he was kidnapped from a Hong Kong hotel by Chinese security officers. Then he disappeared from public view. It is widely believed that he was abducted and taken to mainland China by the CCP. Now, 3 years later, Beijing has dismantled his flagship Tomorrow Group. Despite coming from a humble background, Xiao was able to control in his 40s a business empire with over 17 banks, 9 insurance companies, and multiple securities, trusts, and funds. Officially, China's communist officials and their relatives are not allowed to do business. Thus, Tomorrow Group became his vehicle to help the political elites to make fortunes from the shadows with the privilege of their power playing out behind the scenes. For example, in 2006, he helped the son of then-top communist official Zhen Qinghong to purchase a Chinese state-owned energy giant. The company is worth around $10 billion, but Xiao paid $500 million, only 1/20th of the due value. In 2013, Xiao bought shares in an investment firm held by the sister and brother-in-law of communist leader Xi Jinping. Mr. Xiao's spokeswoman said in a statement, they did it, quote, for the family. This list goes on. The results of Baoshang Bank's assets and capital verification show that from 2005 to 2019, the Tomorrow Group registered over 200 shell companies and borrowed about 350 loans, totaling $20 billion. All of these payments have become non-performing loans with an annual interest of up to $1.5 billion. Reporting by Xu Wenhui, NTD News.
Forced demolition work has begun inside one Beijing neighborhood. The area's residents include professors of renowned universities who are now being forcibly displaced. This move indicates that Chinese authorities may be taking aim at citizens with certain levels of social status.
2 houses in a neighborhood called Jiuhua Agricultural Science Demonstration Park in Beijing were demolished on Wednesday without the agreement of the residents. About 300 other homes in this neighborhood would follow, according to the authorities' demolition plan. Over 2,000 residents are affected. Some of them are professors of renowned universities. This is rare in forced demolishing work, where previously the victims were mainly people with little social status or influence. Last week, the neighborhood was broken into using force by hundreds of security guards. They dismantled the protective fence set up by the owners. House demolition notices were posted and the gas supply was cut off. One of the property owners, Mr. Zhang, told us that on Wednesday morning, more than 100 security guards in black arrived and drove into 2 machines for demolishing work. To protect his identity, we will only use his surname.
They blocked all of the entrances to the houses that were set to be demolished, and people were not allowed to approach. All cars had to take a detour. It took about half an hour to an hour to dismantle. When the owners went up, the security guards formed a line arm in arm. No one was allowed to pass.
20 years ago, the Investment Promotion Office of Xiaotang Shantown, where this neighborhood is located, promoted the Jiuhua Agricultural Science Demonstration Park in 2 renowned universities nearby. It had attracted a group of professors to invest in the properties there. However, the town hall now claims that these houses are illegal constructions and are set to be demolished. This made Mr. Zhang angry. He pointed out he has official seals from every level of authority on his legal documents regarding the property.
What kind of law did I violate? I have all the contracts, including contracts from the district government, town hall, and county government. The 3-level official seals are all here on the contract.
He added the land in the area has gained in value greatly in the last 20 years, and the authorities just want to take the land back to resell it.
In fact, they only have one motive, which is to tear up the contract. For over 20 years, the government has been trying to tear up its own agreement, take the land back, and sell it to the developers again, because the prices of the land next to us have been soaring higher and higher.
Mr. Zhang said since the town hall cut off the gas supply last week, some older residents have had to stay in the basement because they cannot heat their homes. They're shivering with cold. He added that the bitter cold winter is coming. He said he doesn't know how the thousands of residents there will survive. Reporting by Changchun, NTD News.
Now we turn to the CCP virus outbreak in China. In 2 Chinese megacities, Shanghai and Tianjin, 2 airports canceled 40% of scheduled flights on Tuesday. The cancellations were labeled as a pandemic prevention measure. Earlier this month, a cluster of 7 cases reportedly originated from cargo processed at Shanghai's Pudong Airport. Following the discovery between Sunday evening and Monday morning, about 18,000 of the airport's cargo workers were tested. Videos from social media show scenes of chaos as officials work to keep workers on site for testing. Now we look to the outbreak in Wuhan, the virus epicenter. Some people in Wuhan have been recently re-diagnosed with the CCP virus for a second time. That's after they had already tested positive and recovered months ago. But Chinese authorities haven't reported their cases. This, according to a citizen from Hubei province named Mr. Li. Wuhan is the province's capital city. Li told NTD's sister media, the Epoch Times, that he found out about the situation from a friend who lives in Wuhan. He says that in one local hospital, hundreds of such cases have been detected. Li explained that he believes the message carries a certain basis. But it's difficult to determine what's really happening, with no official announcement from authorities, and the media being barred from investigating. He added that no one dares to disclose the issue in public for fear of being criticized or punished by authorities for what they call spreading rumors. A white-collar worker in Wuhan also told the Epoch Times someone in his circle of friends revealed that their relative has tested positive last month, but that authorities don't report the case. NTD cannot verify the information independently. Questions surrounding China's cover-up of the virus have already been circulating for months. And earlier this month, officials from one county inside Hebei province imposed wartime status, similar to what's called a state of emergency in the U.S. But despite the status, official data claimed that the region had not found any new virus cases locally. Another city in northern China also imposed wartime status. The announcement was made after just one new case of infection was reported. The unusually harsh measures have left locals wondering whether the virus situation there is more severe than officials are letting on. Now we turn to comments from a Chinese professor. According to Chinese media reports, a professor from a renowned Chinese university said Beijing's efforts to combat the CCP virus have generated over $10 billion in revenue for 2020. That makes up about 2/3 of the country's total GDP. The professor works for the National School of Development at Peking University. It's known as China's think tank in the college circle. Her comments came during an international conference over the weekend. An opinion article posted on an overseas Chinese website commented on the topic. It noted that during the pandemic, almost all other countries served their citizens. That includes providing free treatment, food subsidies, cost of living allowances, and unemployment benefits. But instead, the Chinese regime has made 1.4 billion people pay $10 trillion. It went on to explain the source of the $10 trillion, describing it as revenue made from selling fake or poor quality masks, as well as counterfeit medicines, ventilators, and unapproved vaccines. The article added that products' high prices were driven up by official media outlets working to guide public opinion. Many neighborhoods were also under lockdown, so people were forced to accept the high prices. According to the article, one of the most profitable sources came from the high fees required for forced quarantine in hotels, as well as mass virus testing fees charged in the name of prevention and control. Even the funeral industry earned revenue because of the situation. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has an update on the vaccine. It said the country may begin distributing millions of authorized doses in just a few weeks. The FDA has purchasing agreements with one biopharma company for up to 300 million doses for Americans. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more.
According to Health Secretary Alex Azar, the FDA will meet with its Independent Vaccine Advisory Board on December 10th. That is a key step to authorizing a vaccine. Azar said he believes a vaccine can be distributed to all 50 states and 6 metro areas within 24 hours of authorization. He said they are partnering with the private sector to administer the vaccine.
One of the private sector partners we've enlisted, CVS Health, has said that they expect to be vaccinating residents of nursing homes, one of the top priority groups, within 48 hours after FDA authorization.
The FDA has prioritized healthcare workers, first responders, and residents of nursing homes to get the vaccine first. Azar expects by the second quarter of next year, any American who wants a vaccine will be able to get one. Four-star General Perna is the COO of the Trump administration's Operation Warp Speed. He is involved in the decision to use a whole-of-America approach to distribute the vaccine. That way, he says, Americans will have confidence in the process knowing common names are carrying out the distribution.
From Pfizer, Moderna, McKesson Trucking, through FedEx, UPS, down to the pharmacies such as CVS and Walgreens, and many others. The intent was to integrate, synchronize, and capitalize on known professionals who know how to execute this.
Azar says the agency has Phase 3 data on 3 vaccines in active study. Also, there are 5 therapeutics authorized by the FDA to help people suffering from the virus. This weekend, the FDA approved the Regeneron cocktail that was given to President Trump. On Tuesday, the agency distributed 35,000 doses of the product. Secretary Azar said the agency is communicating with the Biden transition team to get them the necessary briefing materials. This follows the GSA administrator's ascertainment of Joe Biden as president-elect. But that does not mean Biden is president-elect, as only the electoral process outlined in the Constitution can determine the winner of the election. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Now we look at a comment from Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping. Beijing has remained uncharacteristically quiet in recent days about the results of the U.S. election. But on Wednesday, Xi Jinping congratulated Democratic nominee Joe Biden, marking China's formal recognition of the results. At the same time, lawsuits over possible election fraud are still underway in several U.S. states. In his message to Biden, Xi wrote that he hopes both countries uphold the spirit of non-conflict, non-confrontation. That's in contrast to the tough stance toward Beijing that the Trump administration has become known for. Xi Jinping is a retired Taiwanese professor. He has been sentenced by a Chinese court to 4 years in prison for spying-related charges. The rule against him was confirmed by Beijing's Taiwan Affairs Office spokeswoman on Tuesday. But she didn't say if Xi had requested an appeal. Xi is one of 4 Taiwanese scholars and businessmen who were forced to make TV confessions last month on state-run China Central Television, or CCTV. The series of TV confessions of Taiwanese spies is China's new front in its pressure campaign against Taiwan. It includes a series of spying allegations and confessions aired on state television. And in the UK, according to a new law put forward on Tuesday, UK telecom companies could be fined more than $130,000 a day if they use equipment made by Chinese telecom company Huawei. The UK government said the new rules will protect the country from hostile cyber activity, citing threats from Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. In July, in response to U.S. sanctions on Huawei, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson banned Huawei from the country's telecom infrastructure by the end of 2020 and ordered the stripping out of existing kits from its 5G network by 2027. British telecom companies are already switching from Huawei to its main rivals, Ericsson and Nokia. And in Canada, telecom giant TELUS says it's removing Huawei equipment from its 5G network and will rely on Western telecom manufacturers as well as South Korea. Canada has yet to give an official decision regarding whether to ban Huawei. The country's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has been indecisive on this issue. It partly depends on if he receives much pressure from the U.S. to ban Huawei. In this sense, the result of the U.S. election has a huge impact on the fate of Huawei in Canada and also in other countries. Another round of more than 40 mobile apps were banned in India on Tuesday. Most of them were made by Chinese developers. The list includes an app for Alibaba Holdings' e-commerce website AliExpress, as well as other apps that Indian officials say threaten the country's sovereignty and integrity. India has already banned over 170 apps so far. These actions, which India calls digital strikes, were initiated after 20 Indian soldiers were killed in a border clash with Chinese troops in June. Tensions have been rising between the two nuclear-armed countries for several months. The Chinese embassy in India said on Wednesday it resolutely opposed the ban. India's move to ban AliExpress is another setback for Chinese shopping giant Alibaba. It's the biggest investor in Indian fintech firm Paytm and also backs online grocer Big Basket. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.